Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GN Dave. I'm your man behind the screen. And welcome to a rambling Roman vlog that's actually a little bit different from the one I was originally going to do today. Originally, I was going to actually talk about the session that I played with my friend Jimmy when I visited him last month for the first time in 5 years, and when we played D&D together for the first time in the last decade. But since it's been a month since playing that, my memory on some of the details is a little foggy, and since I'm working the day job too, obviously I don't have my notes to reference. So I'm just gonna wait and do a proper D&D discussion video on that at a later time. So this time, though, I do want to talk about an incident that's a little bit fresher in my mind, something that happened just a couple of weeks ago. And the video is not really so much about the incident itself as opposed to the behavior and mindset surrounding it. Essentially, what we're going to be discussing today is elitism within the hobby. And this is just going to kind of be a light discussion on it. I will go into a more proper video on that. Not really sure if I'm going to do that as a So You Want to Be a GM video or a Striving for Greatness video. I'm kind of leaning more towards Striving for Greatness, as this is an issue that is something felt by both GMs and players alike. So I'm probably going to go ahead and, when I do a more proper deep dive video into the signs and problems that elitism causes, it's probably going to be for that series instead. But for right now, I just want to kind of discuss the incident that got me thinking about it again and sort of reminded me that it is still a problem within this hobby. And that came, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now, when the Dawnforged Cast YouTube channel posted a video discussing a certain major event that happened in Matthew Mercer's Critical Role series. Now, I'm going to make it clear right now, as much as I am a fan of Matt Mercer, I don't really care for Critical Role personally. I think it's a little bit too milquetoast, a little bit too risk-free of an endeavor to really engage me personally. And not to say there's anything wrong with anyone who enjoys that. If you like the way Matt Mercer runs his games, if you like the way he handles Critical Role, I can't fault that. Clearly he's obviously been doing something right, because he's got a pretty damn big audience for that show. And even though I personally am not that big into it, I'll fully admit the players and Matt himself, they are pretty damn entertaining. They do bring some fun to the game that they're playing, and they do bring some entertainment value to the characters they're running. It's just not really engaging enough to keep me invested. And the reason I bring this up is because the elitist in question, and I'm not going to be naming names, and neither am I going to be calling out this guy for what he said or his terrible argumentation in his attempt to foist off his personal opinion as fact. I took care of that in the comment section after he made the comment. I said my piece to him, and he had nothing to say back because what he was saying, he couldn't really defend it. He couldn't defend it because he was trying to pass his opinion off as an absolute truth. Big mistake. But I'm not going to talk down about his opinion, because really it is essentially the same opinion I have about Critical Role, in most senses anyway. His opinion, like mine, is that Critical Role is a little bit too milquetoast and not really engaging enough, the way it's run doesn't have enough risk and deep involvement to really engage him. But instead of presenting it in that manner, instead of saying something to the effect of, meh, I don't really like Critical Role. I don't think that this particular big incident, which, let's face it, by now, most everyone who watches Critical Role probably knows what it is. There was a character death in Critical Role. I don't know which character it was. Like I said, I don't watch the show because I don't particularly care for it. So I don't know what character it was. I don't know which player it was who lost their character. But one of the characters died. And that's the first time, apparently, that this has ever happened in Critical Role. Which means that, from my personal view, that now leaves Matt and his party with an opportunity to explore a new aspect of storytelling that they haven't touched on before. They have something new that they can explore with their characters. They can now explore the pain that those characters might feel from having a close friend die in combat, the regret that they might feel for possibly feeling like they were unable to save them, and so on and so forth. And if they decided to follow through with that, again, I don't know because I don't watch the show, but if they do decide that they're going to follow through on that and explore this, then that's going to also leave their audience, who had a lot of really strong feelings about this, with the same opportunity to explore this as well, and possibly build a deeper and more meaningful bond with the characters, which is something I was never able to do, because as fun and amusing as the characters were in Critical Role, being fun and amusing for me is not enough to develop a meaningful tie to them. This guy's opinion floated around that same area. For the most part, I agreed with how he felt, especially when he was trying to expand on it. What I didn't agree with was how he did it. Because he approached this idea as an absolute and extrapolated from this opinion of his, this opinion that Critical Role is a bit milquetoast, that it's not very engaging, that it can be quirky and a bit fun, but it's not really, it doesn't have much risk, and it doesn't really, it's safe is the term I'm looking for. It feels safe. He extrapolated that into the absolute statement that Critical Role and Matt Mercer's style of role-playing is 100% an example of how you don't play tabletop games. It was, as he basically said, the wrong way to play, which is straight up bullshit. That is straight up elitist bullshit. There is no such thing as the wrong way to play. There might be the wrong way to play the game for you, but D&D and just about every other tabletop game is intentionally designed to be open-ended, so you can, for the most part, play them in the style that best befits you. That way, you can find a little something for everyone in your games, which is the right way to go about it, in my opinion. You want to be flexible. You need a system like that, in my opinion, to be flexible so that the massive audiences that these games have, and hell, sometimes even, let's be honest here, we know with a lot of tabletop games, the audiences are not massive. Sometimes these smaller audiences, even these games have, can still find ways to play them in the manner that they most enjoy. Well, according to this guy, nope. If you're not playing it the way he says, then you're playing it wrong. In my personal view, there's no room for that kind of thinking in this hobby. We're all here to have fun when we sit down to play these games. We're all here to enjoy them in the way that we like. As I mentioned in my Striving for Greatness video on discovering your personal gaming philosophy, everyone's going to have a different manner in which they enjoy these games. And you know what? That's perfectly acceptable. There is nothing wrong with people who enjoy that sort of safer, more standardized fantasy adventure let's tell a fun, kind of basic story style of play that Matt Mercer does. He might ham it up. He might bring a little bit more engagement and depth to it by himself being more animated as a DM, which is a good thing. That's a very good thing. That is, honestly, in my opinion, Matt Mercer's greatest strength as a DM is how animated he is as a DM, how physically and verbally engaged he is, how he just throws himself into every little NPC role that he has and really tries to paint vivid pictures for his players, even if at its core it's not really the deepest, most engaging kind of thing. If people like that, if you like that style of play, if you want to play that kind of a game, by all means, play that kind of a game and fucking have fun. That's what it's here for. It's here to have fun. But if you start letting yourself think, this is the kind of game that I like to play, this is the way that I enjoy playing, if you start letting that thought transform into, this is the way the game is supposed to be played, stop. You're doing it wrong. At that point, then you are doing it wrong. Tabletop games are not set in stone. The way they are played is not absolute. At least with tabletop RPGs. With some tabletop games, yes, there are absolutes. It's a little bit difficult to take something like, a card game, for example, like Magic the Gathering. It's a tabletop game. It's a card game. You sit down at the table, you play with your cards, but it's got set rules and set ways that it's played. It's a little hard to kind of, customize that. But for a tabletop role-playing game, the vast majority of them are intentionally designed to be open-ended so that you can experience them in different ways. You can focus more on role-play than mechanics. You can focus more on mechanics than role-play. You could put a heavy focus on both. You could play a very loosey-goosey game that doesn't have a heavy focus on either one. The point is, you have a lot of options baked into the design of these games. And it's even stated as such in a lot of these books. A lot of role-playing game books will straight up tell you that the rules and instructions placed therein are not absolutes, that they are guidelines to be picked and chosen through to build the specific type of game you want to play. Matt Mercer and the people at Critical Role, with their house rules and with the rules they choose to use and not use, have designed the style of game that they like. It is not the style of game that I like, so I don't play it. But I don't begrudge them for playing the way they do. An elitist, however, will begrudge someone for playing the way they do if the way they are playing differs from what they think should be done. And that is not the kind of attitude that we want to foster in this community. All that does is turn people away from the hobby. All that does is minimize the ability for new people who want to learn how to play these games, who want to get invested in the hobby, who are interested, perhaps because of something like Critical Role introducing it to them. It just ends up turning them away and shutting them out. So, long story short, this guy went on his little tirade, and he got dogpiled for it. And I will admit, I had a small hand in that dogpiling because I argued against what he was, well, not against what he was saying, but I argued against the argumentation he was trying to make. I argued against the idea that this opinion of his was a fact, because it's not. He has one way of playing, Matt Mercer has another. And it opened up eventually, and I will fully admit, this guy did get dogpiled, and there were a group of people who were attacking him directly. That's not acceptable either. Don't attack the guy directly just because he doesn't agree with you. Even if his argumentation was fucking stupid. And it was. It was very stupid. At no point did he actually provide something to back up his claim, which of course he couldn't. Realistically speaking, he couldn't back up his claim because his claim was an opinion. There was nothing concrete there to back up. But that still doesn't excuse people attacking him personally. You shouldn't be doing that either. However, as this mess went on, and it went on for, I think the argument went on with this guy kind of being dogpiled and him very flimsily and poorly attempting to back up his claim with, honestly, really, he just did it with more opinions. He didn't put anything empirical down. Because again, like I said, there's no way he really could. What he was arguing wasn't empirical to begin with. But it reached a point where he tried to claim, oh God, I'm sorry, I started to lose my train of thought. So as the argument went on, it went on for about there was about 4 hours worth of this stuff. It reached the point where he started trying to claim expertise, because supposedly he helped edit a couple of 5th edition books and modules. He had supposedly a hand in editing them, supposedly had a hand in helping to design the 5th edition Adventures League. And okay, sure, that's fine. So you have a little bit of pedigree. Okay. That might give more statements in terms of the design of the game a little bit of weight. But in terms of how people choose to use the open-ended aspects of that design, doesn't mean a fucking thing. You helped to design the final iteration of Adventures League. You helped to design a couple of the books, helped to edit a couple of the books that Wizards released for 5th edition. All right, big deal. That does not support the opinion being played as a fact. And that's something that a lot of elitists will try to do. They'll try to claim some sort of pedigree to say that, well, I've done this, therefore my opinion is right. Well, no. Because, especially in this case, because just because you've done that, well, it doesn't really tie into the argument you're making. The argument you're making is, there is one way to play this game that is the right way. All other ways are wrong. Matthew Mercer's is the worst way, and he is wrong for doing so. No, that's not true. Because the game is specifically designed to be open-ended. The game is specifically designed to be reshaped and interpreted and changed up table by table, group by group, game by game. No two games will be the same. Even if you're taking a module, let's say you've got 2 groups running Storm King's Thunder for 5th edition. Or hell, we could even go into Pathfinder, and let's say you've got 2 different groups running Carrion Crown. You've got the exact same game, the exact same module, and I guarantee you, neither of those groups will run it the exact same way. Everyone is going to handle that differently, specifically because these games are designed to be open-ended. And I know I have said that a lot, but it can't be stressed enough in this case. It can't be stressed enough because that is the one side of things that elitists fail to understand. That these games are specifically designed to be open-ended in their nature. And because of that, their arguments always fall flat. no matter how right they think they are, in the end, they will ultimately resort to the same tactic of throwing their arms up, saying, well, I know this and that, therefore I'm right. Then walk away and say nothing else. Thinking they've won, but knowing deep down that in the end, they lost the argument because they had no argument to give. So, with that all said and done, friends and gamers, as I said, this is just a little something I kind of wanted to rant about a bit. I've had it on my mind for a couple weeks now. I had planned to actually talk about it the day that it happened, but as I thought about it, I figured, no, given the fact that I was actually had some direct involvement in the argument itself, it is better that I don't do this on the day it happened. Better to let it sit, better to let the cool heads prevail, and talk about it after taking some time to ruminate. So, I just kind of wanted to talk about the particulars of what happened, why I think this guy's argumentation was flawed, even though his opinion was one at its core that I did agree with, that, I do still think Critical Role is a bit of a milquetoast game. It's not to say it's bad, just that it's a little too safe for my tastes. I prefer something a little bit more punchy, something that's willing to put its players in a little bit more risk, and even more than that, something that's willing to explore aspects of character growth that, you might not necessarily see in most tabletop games. So, as I mentioned, I will be exploring this topic in greater detail in a future Striving for Greatness video. Excuse me. And with that all said and done, friends and gamers, what are your thoughts on the topic of elitists and elitism? More importantly, for this video, let's say, what are your thoughts on, what are some ways that you guys might have found to deal with people who have elitist views in the hobby? And if you don't think you've ever run into an elitist, why do you think that is? Furthermore, if you find that you have a very, very limited view on what constitutes the right way to play a game, or what constitutes the right way for you to play, have you ever taken the time to take that hard look at yourself and determine, am I falling into this elitist category? And before I continue on into the actual closing of this video, I just want to note that I actually have caught myself doing this in the past. I did used to be a little bit of an elitist when I was kind of in my later high school years with the hobby. I found a way of playing the game that my friends and I really liked, and I did, for a period of time, kind of stupidly look down on people for playing differently than me. But with age and, with greater understanding as I grew older and as I played more, I came to realize, hey, that's kind of a dumb way to think, because I sort of ended up shutting myself out from other ways of playing the game that I might have enjoyed earlier if I had been willing to try them. And funny enough, those ways of playing the game that I shut myself out from are now my favorite way of playing. So, have you ever stopped to really try, if you have found yourself really focused on one side, one aspect of playing, one style of playing the game, have you given other styles a fair shake yet? Again, this actually kind of ties back a little bit into my video on finding your personal philosophy. One thing that I think a lot of players kind of do shortchange themselves on. And I know I'm repeating myself from a previous video, but I do think a lot of players shortchange themselves in not experimenting with different styles of play and with different systems of play too. It's always good that if you have the opportunity to try a new tabletop system, I encourage everyone to jump at it, because just as there can be people who are elitist about the style of play, there are people who are very elitist about the game itself that you're playing, the system that you're using to play. Honestly, the one system I see that probably the most in is Pathfinder, which is really unfortunate because a lot of the people who play Pathfinder are, that I've met who are kind of elitist about the system itself, have a style of play that would work really well with some other systems that are a lot of fun, and I think they would probably enjoy if they were willing to give it a chance. But all that said, again, just to touch on the questions real quick one more time so you guys can kind of have them fresh. Players and GMs alike, through your time in tabletop gaming, how have you dealt with people who have elitist attitudes? What are some tricks that you found to sort of disarm them in the face of arguments when they inevitably do come up with people who have a really elite way of looking at things? And for those of you out there who are a little more single-minded in the way that you play, not necessarily reaching the balance of elitism, but have you taken the time to stop and think about whether you've made the concerted effort to give other styles and systems a fair shake before deciding for sure, this is what I play, this is what I like, this is what I'm going to stick with? So with all that said, friends and gamers, this has been another bit of a long video, but hey, it helps pass the time on the way up to the warehouse, which I'm finally getting near to. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, please feel free to leave it a like and consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, I highly encourage you to click the bell notification button so you can be notified of when videos are posted. Make sure if you click that bell to check and see if it is set to notify all or notify some. And if it is set to notify some, I would ask that you please select notify all. I don't know why they decided to do this, why they thought it was a good idea, but apparently YouTube thinks that should be a choice you have to make manually now. Whatever. But if you want more reliable notifications, I highly encourage you to follow me on social media. I am currently on 4 platforms. You can find them all in links in the description below. And while you're there, please feel free to take a look at Phoenix Rising, my webcomic that I've been working on with my friend Hannah from over in England. I work as the writer on it. She does all the art. There's a link for that in the description down below. We currently have the prologue chapter up, and I believe we should be getting the next few pages up, going into the starting to go into the first story arc. We should be getting the first few pages up this weekend, and we will be posting on a bi-monthly schedule, so twice a month we'll be posting up there. We would be posting faster with that, but unfortunately she and I both work day jobs that are pretty demanding of our time, so it really was kind of just the best way to get it done so that she can get pages edited, laid out, I can get the script written, and still also make these videos while we're both doing our jobs that eat anywhere from 8 to 10 and sometimes 12 hours out of our day. So yeah, with all that said and done, friends and gamers of all stripes, as usual, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and it is my sincere hope that you continue to roll high, role play well, and always game on. Have a wonderful day.